Joining me now by phone to talk more about this, Brit Hume, Fox News senior political analyst. Brit, your thoughts on this day?
Well, I think that if the change here suggests that what we will now have is a fully operational, real chain of command inside the White House of the kind that a military man like John Kelly might be just the person to provide, then I think it may well be a step in the right direction. Obviously, this has been kind of a floating crap game down at the White House with, people coming in and out of the Oval Office and the president going around the people who work under him to speak to the media, and a lot of his fans may like that. But I think it's caused all sorts of chaos and problems. And so Kelly may be just the man to provide this White House the kind of order that previous White Houses have always had. That kind of hierarchical structure, by the way, Brett, didn't occur in the White House by accident. It was developed over many administrations and has been used for many years, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah, it's important to point out, Brett, that he does have experience working in Washington, both sides of the aisle. He was a legislative liaison for the Marines. He was a senior aide for Secretaries Gates and Panetta. He has worked with both sides of the aisle. He's comfortable as the former head of Southern Command dealing with Capitol Hill. But covering the White House, as I have, that orchestrating the trains that go into the Oval Office and who gets in and who doesn't, especially perhaps this Oval Office, this will be a challenge.
It is a challenge. He's been, I think, regarded by many as a real star in the way he's run the Department of Homeland Security, though, as we obviously know, he's only been there, less than half a year, or just about half a year. So the question really comes down to this, Brett. Does this president really want to have the kind of hierarchical situation in which all the paper, all the appointments, all the visits to the Oval Office work through the Chief of Staff to get to the president, that he is his point of contact with everyone below him and outside the White House as well as inside? There are reasons why that kind of structure has been employed in the White House. You don't want the president being pulled in all directions all the time. But this president is impulsive, and he's used to doing things his own way. He's used to a very casual operating structure. He did that in his business, and it worked for him. So will he really allow this to happen, even if he's promised it? And there are reports tonight that Kelly's been told that everything must come through him, or that he'll be able to set that up. The question is, how long will it last, and will the president be willing to stick to it? And I think that will turn the success or failure of the Kelly administration at the White House.
Yeah, I talked about his experience, but one thing that he has not done a lot of is deal with the politics, the pure politics of a policy shop, domestic policy shop. So does that somehow empower the Kellyanne Conways, the Steve Bannons, and give them perhaps more access where General Kelly may not have spent a lot of time in those issues?
Well, it's hard to know. That Kelly is, for a general, he's had quite a lot of Washington experience, and he's well known in the town. He's worked in the White House before, so he knows his way around the place. His job as Chief of Staff is to see to it that a variety of viewpoints on issues reach the president, and that they're presented kind of in a fair way. Most chiefs of staff are not noted for being policy experts themselves, which, of course, does not mean that a president won't turn to a chief of staff and say, what do you think about this? But his job is to be kind of a broker through whom, different viewpoints reach the president, and policy papers and all the rest of it. And he's responsible for the paper flow and all of that. So his ability to manage that and to do it in a fair way is the key. Whether that can work or not, as I say, Brett, it's all up to the president.
Last thing, clearly this president likes generals. He respects the military. He respects the service and thinks that is key as far as key positions. In the wake of what we now have today, another ICBM missile launched by North Korea, a rocket launched by Iran, serious problems in the Middle East, is there some sense that perhaps he gets a comfort by having someone with such experience next to his side?
Well, he does seem impressed by military people, and you see that in the appointments he's made, everywhere. He didn't appoint a civilian to head the Pentagon. He appointed a military officer, or a retired military officer. He did the same as, obviously, we know at the Department of Homeland Security. And, of course, his national security advisor is also a military man. Now, there's some people who are going to complain about that and say it represents the militarization of our civilian government and the rest of it. my thought would be that that this administration badly needs the kind of discipline that military people are accustomed to and can provide. So, I think that's, and I think, when it comes to these issues, such as the ones you just mentioned, obviously his familiarity with those things and his knowledge of them will likely be an asset.
Brit, as always, thanks for the time.
You bet, Brett.